call is now being recorded.
Yes, sir. How you doing, comrade? You all right? So I'm talking to what, Jeff and Daniel? Or?
Yeah, Jeff and Daniel.
All right. But I know it's getting kind of late, guys, and I appreciate the changing the time there. I didn't realize we were going to call at 7 o'clock, and Mama informed me that she had an appointment there, so sorry about that. So this is great.
Oh, no, it's all good. Just like you, we're awake all night.
Yeah, we don't sleep much at night.
All right. Yeah, we're late sleeping. We're usually a little bit late. Sleeping, lazy guys. Well, that's the wrestling schedule.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I can imagine. For those who don't know you, who is Ivan Koloff? Like, who's the character?
Ivan Koloff. Well, he's that good-looking wrestler, comrade. You never seen him? You never heard of him? Yeah, he's a bald head, of course, but, you know, he usually keeps it pretty shiny, so he's got a beard, and I understand that, the women go crazy about him, but of course he chases them away because his wife is quite jealous, and she's got a mean right hand, so he's got to watch himself. No, Ivan Koloff is still that dreamer that was 8 years old, watched wrestling on television at a friend's place about 1950, and fell in love with what they call professional wrestling. And oh man, I made that statement at the time. Someday I'm going to be a world champion wrestler, and of course I'm the middle child of 10 kids, 7 boys and 3 girls, so I maybe shot my mouth out a little too much there. And I got tested many times, I know, by my brothers, and even my sister. If I walked across her newly washed floor, she'd hit me over the head with a mop or something, put me in my place. But I had a great upbringing with lots of siblings and a mother and father that obviously cared a lot for us. Uneducated, you know, that my mom and dad, as far as schooling is concerned, but a lot of wisdom. And my mom knew how to encourage. She'd end up saying, "There's my little champion. Someday he's going to be world champion wrestler." And of course, saying that around my brothers and sisters, and the jealousy that would create. Oh, right away, I got tested, you know, and I'm glad I did, because it helped me to learn to wrestle, you know, and that also gave me a chance to go out there and experience some things with wrestling, following it on not only television in my later years, but actually getting involved in it as far as wrestling school. But
who was your inspiration during the 1950s, 1960s?
Definitely my hero, Bruno Sammartino. I started watching right around that time, right through religious, because I first seen it around 1950, and in 58, Buddy Rogers ended up having the title, and Bruno Sammartino came along, and he won the title from this Buddy Rogers in 63, and I just finished the wrestling school. I watched him for years. I had this big Italian guy from Buzzi, Italy. I guess I was impressed with the fact that he did a lot of weights, and he was sure of himself. Like, he talked like he was sure of himself, and he's a good man, because he would always go down and say a prayer before his match, and I guess it just impressed me. I'd like to be a wrestler like him, and sort of followed him, and who knew that at that time that I'd end up wrestling him just after he became champion back in 63 in Pittsburgh, of course, under my wrestling name from the wrestling school. They gave me a name of an Irishman, because I guess at that time I had long red hair, something like Seamus, I guess, today. And they said, Red McDonald would be a good name for this guy. But that's awesome. Oh, man, I got to wrestle Bruno down there in Pittsburgh on television. I didn't know it until I got down there, but I was taking Bull Johnson's place, a guy from the Hamilton area where I went to the wrestling school, and he had got sick and they needed a fill in, so they had me jump in the car, drive down to Pittsburgh with the boys, and they picked me to wrestle against Bruno, and that was an experience in itself. There, I tell you, yeah, because they pulled a little whip on me. You might say the old timers are always joking in the dressing room, especially with the young guys, and they told me what I needed to do, and Bruno went down to his knee to say a prayer on television, you know, to attack him, because all the promoters would be watching, and if I beat him up, they'd be impressed by me. They'd want me to come into their territory and wrestling. I believed I was gullible. I believed it. So I did that. And I'll never forget Bruno's face as I started kicking him and punching him, because I was a pretty strong kid by this time. I had got up to about 260 pounds and was bench pressing close to, 400 pounds and squatting 400 or 500 pounds. And, I guess I was laying in some hard kicks and punching hard. And I remember his look, like he was surprised. But it didn't take him long to show why he was a champion. He threw me around like a rag doll for, seemed like forever, but I guess it was just a couple minutes before he, of all things, he ended up putting a bear hunt on Ivan Koloff. And
nice.
I got the message. Time to give up. Because this guy's a little hot. That was my debut. Yeah. That was my debut to, to start to wrestle, and I loved it. Went from there to, matter of fact, just later on, a few months later, Vince Sr., I guess Jack Wentworth, the guy that trained me in Hamilton, he ended up being friends or knowing about Vince McMahon and called him and set me up a tour down there for a week as Red McDonald to wrestle 1963, about 5 different cities. Scranton, I remember I wrestled Dr. Bill Miller, down to Washington, D.C., and a couple other towns, and ended up in the Gardens. Yeah.
Sir?
But I didn't know the Gardens. I guess I didn't listen closely enough. I was supposed to get a electrocardiogram or get checked out by the doctor or whatever it was to get my license, and they couldn't use me that night. I was so disappointed because here I had a chance to wrestle in the Gardens. And this Bruno Sammartino showed me why I really loved him, as a youngster, because he came up to me. A lot of people don't know this, but I told the story in my book, and that I'm proud of the fact that he heard that I ended up coming down there and not being informed or not catching on to the fact that I was supposed to get checked out by the doctors, and I missed out. I had a X amount of dollars to wrestle 5 times. I think it was like $500 altogether, and I was disappointed I wasn't going to get my money for this end of the deal. And he had to go into his own pocket. I don't know for sure, but he heard the story. He came back in. He said, "Here, kid," and he gave me a $50 bill. I remember.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that goes to show the character of this man. And of course, I didn't get to see him after that. That's 63, or have anything to do with him. But I got to wrestle around the Toronto area. And then for a couple of years, and left there to go up to British Columbia, wrestling out there for 65, 66, into 67. I ended up getting the tour to Japan, and that's where I met the promoter's brother from Montreal, Jacques Rougeau, and he ended up taking a liking to me. He liked my wrestling. I was about 300 pounds by this time. And he said, I'm the promoter's brother. If you would, if you would shave your hair, come in as a Russian, and in Montreal.
Yeah.
All right.
But I did have one question. Were there any attacks on you after you won the match versus Bruno?
During the championship match, when you won.
Oh, man, I was a little bit in awe, to say the least. You can imagine, even though I'd been wrestling about 10 years, got some experience, I was still a little nervous of wrestling the guy that I idolized and knew that he was champion for 7.5 years at this point. And needless to say, a little anxious, nervous, but I had wrestled a lot of matches and a lot of different great talent. I had that tour to Japan, and so it gave me a rounded a bit. I was starting to really catch hold of what needed to accomplish in the ring when I was in there, and of course I was still very shocked whenever the audience, after I jumped off the top rope and on Bruno, I didn't realize that his back was bad at the time. He had injured a couple of times, and maybe a little bit too much weight on that knee at 300-pounder, coming off the top. Anyway, the people just went quiet when the 1, 2, 3 came, and I was shocked. I was like, man, what happened? What's going on? What's wrong? And I understand that Bruno even felt the same way. He felt that he couldn't hear anything for a while, and it was like, because nobody was doing anything. Fans that went silent. They couldn't believe that Bruno finally lost. And later on, when the captain and I were leaving the arena down in the basement, getting in the cab, the people rushed in and tried to upset the cab. So I learned pretty quick that Bruno was a very loved champion. And I guess for a few seconds there, maybe in the ring after the 1, 2, 3, and my hand was raised, I felt bad, but maybe just for a few seconds. I knew that really made my career, winning the belt, and it was really prestigious for me, to say the least. And after that, I went, just before that, I had went to Australia for a tour, and because I'd wrestled Bruno 69 all the way through the year and left, and they called me to come back and wrestle. I thought it was to take somebody's place that got injured, but and maybe it was, I don't know, but I came back and I said, with the agreement that at least we'd be taken care of, because I just moved out of here, my stuff and everything, I had an apartment. Here I am coming back. I just wanted to be coming back for one shot or something, and I want to know what's going on. And they ended up telling me that they'd use me for a few months. But as it turned out, of course, won the title, lost the title, and moved out for a while and came back at another time and wrestled again. So it really made my career, though. I was really happy.
How long did you have the title?
I don't know if you look at it in hours or days, but it was, I think the very next month that the Guards lost it to Pedro Morales. I say he sold it, but of course, that's my story. I had him in a full Nelson. He reached up to take the rope, but the force of it dropped my hands down to his waist, and I went back into a bridge, and consequently, I'm on the offense. I figured they'd count his shoulders down, but the referees counted my shoulders down. So what do? Can't argue with the ref, I guess. Well, you can argue. I did argue. Didn't do any good. Matter of fact, I went back and got in the promotion's face and what's going on here? Playing games with me or what? But I guess they could do what they wanted to do. There's nothing you could do about it. Television was the thing, and they could manipulate it any way they wanted. So they had footage on you, probably in different situations where you could have been counted down, and you could just show that anytime. But in any case, it really made my career just being the champion, even for the month, and to wrestle against my hero Bruno. That was great, to say the least. Really great for me. From there, I went, of course, to Minnesota. I had 12 tours to Japan altogether. From Minnesota for a couple of years, AWA, down to Carolinas, and wrestled the NWA for, I guess, until I retired, with a few runs up to New York, going back up there to wrestle Backler and Pedro a little bit, trips to the Middle East and the Philippines and all that. I really enjoyed it.
That brings up a random question. Is it true that Bob Backlund is crazy, or is that a whole gimmick?
sometimes I wonder when I watched him go crazy there, but black out. But to me, he was such a gentleman. What a crazy, I guess, image to try to portray from him being such a gentleman type of wrestler. Really great, scientific, strong guy, really strong guy, to this crazy guy like he flipped out. I don't know. A lot of people said that they think he did flip out there a little bit, and not all himself, but I don't know. I never wrestled him after that. It was just before that, and maybe he just wanted to add a little color to his image or something. I don't know. But to me, it sure wasn't the Bob Backlund I knew. You know, he was such a gentleman-like type guy. You know, athlete.
I was just wondering because it almost seemed like, from what I remember, I'm only 32, but it seemed like in the early 90s when wrestling was transitioning, they were almost disrespecting the classic wrestlers, like the old school ones. Like, yeah. I remember they made Nikita Koloff. They put a sign on his trunk and said he was broke. They made Bob Backlund seem like he was crazy, and it made me stop watching wrestling because I didn't think that was right.
They had a sign on somebody like he was broke, you said?
Yeah, it was. I think it was Nikita Koloff, and they had him in a stable with $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, and they put a sign on his trunk, and they did a whole thing of him being broke.
No, I think that was Nikolai Volkov, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I believe. Yeah, Nikolai Volkov.
Nikolai, not Nikita. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Nikolai Volkov and Boris Zukov, I think, were teamed up there in the New York area as the Bolsheviks, yeah. And I wasn't watching it too steady back then, so that's probably a thing that Ted came up with to degrade him or something, I suppose. Nikita, of course, was in the other organizations at that time, National Wrestling Association, included territories all over the world, from Japan to Europe to Australia to many territories right here in America, including Canada, and moved around. And then, of course, there was the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, and then later on WWE, and of course now it's all WWE because it's got it all out. But AWA out, the NWA or WCW, whatever it was called at the time, and he took over. And let's say I give credit where credit's due. Man made it into a $1 billion business, and still doing good with it.
So I have another question for you, sir. What was the craziest thing that you've ever seen in wrestling?
Craziest thing? Oh,
yeah.
Wow. I was part of some things that were pretty crazy. I know there's probably crazier stuff like Blackjack Mulligan getting 20-some stitches, being knifed, and Roddy Piper getting stabbed in the stomach, and Sonny King. But myself, I had a knife thrown at me and hit me in the back, and the knife was open down in Florida, and luckily the handle hit me. And I reached down, got it. The referee, I don't know if you've seen it or not, he let out, he did. Anyway, I closed it, and I used it on my opponent, the 1, 2, 3, and let out. I threw it back to the crowd like the guy had thrown it to me to use as a weapon. And I heard a commotion in the crowd because I think what that guy was trying to do was hurt me because he was throwing a knife at me that was open. That's pretty crazy. Other stuff, unbelievable stuff. The people in Puerto Rico, for example, would take the seats apart, just as one example, and throw the nuts off the seats, the bolts, part of the seat at you as you're walking up the ring. Boston was really another place they had to put a net over the walkway from the dressing room to the ring, and Puerto Rico was the same way. Real wild stuff. I had nails that were bent in two, shot at me with an elastic band, like used like a slingshot, and I had one stick right in my head one night up in Three Rivers, Quebec. People were allowed to drink in the buildings back in those days from not only up in Quebec, but down in the States here too, and especially in hockey arenas. And man, they're real wild. I had different situations where many times I had to fight my way to the dressing room and to the ring. Roddy Piper and I had one of the biggest lawsuits of that time back in the day whenever somebody attacked Rowdy on the way to the ring, and Rowdy threw me his bagpipes and took off after the guy, caught him within 100 feet and took him down and threw a few punches at him, and the police was supposed to throw the guy out. But after the match, Rowdy and I were the champions against Ric Flair and Wahoo McDaniel, and we even lost by disqualification. We didn't lose our titles, and we lost the match. After we got out of the ring, the same guy that attacked Rowdy, that we thought they had thrown him out, came around and face-to-face with Rowdy, and Rowdy just so deep he brought his knee up into the guy's groin, and he stumbled back the guy into the audience. And I watched him, and I was behind Rowdy as we were going to the dressing room with an escort of police, and I seen him going around. He coming through the sucker punch Rowdy, and I beat him to the punch, and I hit him in the jaw. Evidently, they claimed I broke his jaw, the guy. He was a soldier, and I felt bad about that. He was on leave. When we came back to the court case, he was a police officer in Sumter. Oh. Yeah, the Crockett anyway. So we were all right anyway. But the people were wild. You know, in the old days, they said the ladies would take hat pins and try to stab the guys with the hat pins, or take a purse and put a brick in it and try to hit us in the ankle. And I experienced that myself one time. But pretty wild stuff going on. Yeah, riots, I guess, was the worst that I've experienced. Myself and Hans Schmidt were tagged up in Montreal, but on one occasion they had me and Ernie the Cat Ladd having the belts, and against the Rougeaus, and they loved the Rougeaus so much. It was in Rimouski, I believe, ice hockey arena, and they had those big ice scrapers out there to clean the ice off. And I'll never forget the people got so excited whenever it was a 2 out of 3 fall. We ended up getting disqualified the first fall, the title match, and the people couldn't take it anymore because we had the Rougeaus all bloodied up. They had started throwing chairs into the ring, and I must say, I was there. I've been in a few barroom situations and a few fights, you know, myself in the street, but that was scary because those chairs were flying pretty fast into the ring. They're filling the ring up with chairs, and I said, Cat, what do we do here? Go back to the dressing room? He said, oh yeah, pick up a chair, kid, and just use it as a shield, and we'll work our way back to the dressing room. I just listened to him. He had more experience than I did, being a football player and everything. And it worked. We got back to the dressing room, but like me, like a dummy, last second, I had to, as I was going through the door of the dressing room, which was down the stairs in the dugout, I had to look back, and here comes a chair and hits me right in the nose. I made it all the way back to the dressing room, but like clobbered just going into the dressing room. So, some wild stuff like that happened. That's quite a few incidents like that, like riot-type situations, because they didn't like us foreigners too much.
If you,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. If you could do it all over again, would you?
Oh yes, yeah. I probably would have done some things different because learning by my mistakes. But you know, there was a dream come true for me just to be able to wrestle. I guess like the goes, to play the game, you have to pay the price. And I guess today now with broken shoulders and knees and ankles broke and back, and I guess paying the price, I suppose, now. But hey, I'm blessed. I'm still able to walk and kind of bent over, but 74, I see a lot of guys are stuck to the wheelchair, so I consider myself blessed, fortunate, yeah.
So I have another question for you, sir.
Yes,
Did
sir.
you have a drug problem that most wrestlers have, either back then or now?
I had trouble with, I'm sorry, I didn't get the question.
Did you have a drug problem that most wrestlers have?
Yeah, I'm sorry to say I did, and yeah, I'd like to talk about that because I try to encourage youngsters today, and especially athletes, just to stay away from the stuff because it's a tool of the devil. It ends up you're thinking that I work hard, I make the money, I'm entitled to have a few drinks after, so you think that that's all right pretty soon. If you have too many and you end up wrecking your car, DWI, you're lucky to come out alive. Situations where you end up hurting somebody or the drugs, to me, was an offspring off of the drinking and getting the injuries. Doctor puts you on different pain medicine and muscle relaxers, something to sleep, and pretty soon you're living off this stuff and you're actually addicted to it. And you don't really want to admit it. You don't want to do anything about it because you think you have to do that to cooperate, to get along, and to be able to do it. It's all a lie. It's a terrible, terrible way to. It's a wonder I'm alive. That's all I can say. I know by the grace of God I'm alive. I wrecked 2 cars, total wrecks. Walked away with one of them with a dozen stitches. The other one, I didn't walk away so fast. My back, but I went to the hospital. They wanted to operate. I didn't go for it, but it was a situation where the cars were totaled. I mean, lucky to walk away. Lucky to be alive. Let's put it that way. But it was all brought on because of the lifestyle. The idea of thinking that it's all right to do the drugs and that. And I had to come to the realization that it was wrong and that it was really killing myself. But unfortunately, it took me a lot of years to come to that point in my life. And when I did, though, it was maybe too late for a lot of people in the sense of me being a good father, a good husband, a good man, a good person, or whatever you, a husband or whatever you might call it, because that stuff really rules you whenever you get involved in whether it's steroids to uppers, downers, painkillers, and you end up mixing drugs out with alcohol. Pretty soon you're dangerous to yourself and to society. You're out there on the road. Man, I try to tell kids today, just don't do it. Just be strong and show what kind of a man you really are by staying away from it because, that end up bringing you hardships in your life and really ruining your health. And I came to that realization a long time ago, actually, in the 80s, but I really tried to get off of the stuff, and I thought I was doing everything I could to get off, but it took maybe a realization from a friend to tell me what direction to take it in. And at that time, I was really struggling hard to try to get off of the drugs and the alcohol. And my nephew Nikita called me one day, and he told me, because he rode up and down the road with me, and he seen the way I reacted to drugs and alcohol. And I was kind of a crazy guy in and out of the ring, and he told me that I needed Jesus in my life. I said, what are you talking about, nephew? I was raised in a family that we had to go to church every Sunday. And, I know who Jesus is. He says, it's not that, Uncle. He says, the devil knows who Jesus is too, but that doesn't make him a Christian. So he got my attention. I said, well, what do you mean? He says, well, you got to commit yourself to the Lord, admit that you're a sinner, and that you want to straighten up, and you want to get off of this stuff, and you turn your life over to him and ask him to forgive you of your sins and come and live in you. So he told me what happened to him, and I followed up on it. So, and I ended up being woke up pretty sternly in the church whenever I received Jesus as my Lord and Savior, because this little Catholic boy ended up coming forward and receiving Jesus in prayer and being overcome with the Holy Spirit. As the way they tell me it is, I never knew anything about it until Nikita said something to me about it, and man, it happened to me. I was knocked down, and believe me, I wish I could have been knocked down like that in the wrestling, but wrestling, it seemed like I went down with a thud that hurt, but this was something that, man, I felt real good all over, and I just really felt like I was taking control of it. I went to jump up, but Nikita just held me, and he says, that's the Holy Spirit, it's God. And I believed him. And I did what they told me to do, go home and get into the Word and change my life, brother. That's all I can say. It changed my life. Week by week, month by month going by, ended up getting in the Word and ended up getting off of the drugs and the alcohol. And not only by the help of God, though. I mean, He gave me the strength to do it. It's the only way I can put it. And to this day, I still believe the same way. And I believe that by me honoring God and just living for Him, that He's keeping me going. And I'm so thankful for that. And I try to protect other people without trying to rub it in their faces, being honest with them, just telling them what happened to me. And if you want to try to get out the drugs, it's just the way that happened for me. And I would definitely encourage anybody to do it, because He says in His Word that the only way to the Father is through the Son, and you got to accept the fact that He died for our sins and turn your life over to Him. And once I did that, it didn't happen overnight. I mean, I had to get in the Word and change a lot of my habits and that, but He took the desires away, because I went to Him and daily, and I still do it to this day, and thank Him for each day, each time that goes by, and each mistake I make, and apologize for it, and He gives me more strength, and just keep going. And so I would recommend it to anybody. I don't try to throw it down their throat, but the truth is the truth, and you just gotta, I feel so strong about it. That's why I try to tell people about the Lord and His goodness. Matter of fact, I just came back being what an honor it was to speak at the service for the convention for the bikers in Raleigh here this past 2 weekends ago, and they had me come up and give my testimony there, and they had some big old tough bikers around, and it's nice to see a tear come to their eye to realize that they're going through some stuff too, and a lot of people do. We all are vulnerable, as the truth is good and bad in the world. And the devil's here to kill, steal, and destroy, and we just got to understand that the Lord didn't make us for Him. He wants us to be His children, His sons and daughters, but He gave us a free will to accept it, and I'm glad He did, and I'm glad I was smart enough to accept it, and I'd recommend it to anybody and everybody.
I completely understand. I was a big drug addict when I was younger. I did the drugs, I did the alcohol, and my choice of drugs was cocaine. And there's like big periods of my life that's just missing. I have people from high school on my Facebook going, hey, remember that time? I seriously don't. I'm only 32. Yeah. And just recently, probably 5 years ago, I got so bad where I was taking acid, and I literally saw the devil in front of me, and he was sending everybody to hell. And that scared me. Like, I don't like drinking. I don't even like taking Tylenol. If I have a headache, I just complain about it. I don't even take Tylenol anymore.
Yeah, I really try to watch it too. Like, the doctor will give me something because I'm in a lot of pain and he says 2 a day. I try to do 1 a day. So that way I don't get hooked on it. And there's just some stuff I won't go near. I'd rather put up with the pain. But, God is good. God is good if a person will just, Lord, I can tell you some stories that incredible. I mean, that would scare anybody, I guess. The idea of somebody getting so bold that they'd be driving down in New York City, where it's mandatory 5-year sentence to carry a gun, to go driving down the road with that in your car, dealing in cocaine and stuff, and all kinds of drugs, and stopping right on the highway, and make a deal right there because his brother's a dealer selling stuff, and you figure that's what it is. You just pull them. It could have been an undercover cop, and you don't care. You just become so bold and arrogant, and I was getting to the point that I was dangerous, not to just other people, but to myself, And man, I appreciate you sharing with me your part of it, though, brother, because I know that a lot of people are suffering with this, and if they just drop a hold of it and just say, "Hey, just believe it, just research it, try it," Man, what do you got to lose?
Yeah.
It's your life. You only got it once, and why go through and maybe destroy your life, destroy your marriage, and destroy your kids? I got a child today that won't speak to me, and she hasn't spoken to me in 20 years. So it's terrible. And the idea of another one that was raised that she believes in Wicca, that there's nothing to do with God, that crazy stuff, It's just, I have to reach him. I just put in God's hands and ask him to reach him through somebody, and I believe that the least I can do is tell all my friends here and anybody I meet, and I got to know that I'm serious, because a guy like me would not be bragging on something that is not true. Because God proved it to me that he was for real. This last car accident I had, my wife and I, this is after I became a Christian, this lady went through a red light 10 years ago and T-boned me on the driver's side, totaled the car. And I remember that I was looking to my left and I seen this van coming up at a high speed, and I had just taken off the light, and I should have hesitated more, but I didn't. And all I had a chance to do was say, Jesus. The next thing I knew was we had hit heads. I was knocked out. Both of us were knocked out. I grabbed the steering wheel, bent it right over to the dash, and woke up, and I was in the middle of the car. T-bone, the door was pushed me right on over, and thank God it was on my side, not my wife's side. I broke 6 ribs in my sternum and ruptured disc in my back, and took me to the hospital. But my second prayer when I woke up was, "Oh God, please, the pain is so much, help me." And as I said that, the back door of the car on the passenger side that wasn't bent in opened up, and a man jumped in with it was a doctor with a satchel, and he says, "You're in a lot of pain, son." I said, "Yes, sir." And he gave me a shot. He gave me a shot of something, I guess it must have been morphine or something, just to take the pain away a little bit. But I ended up going to the hospital, but I didn't do surgery. That was about the third time that I ended up really being hurt bad in the back. And I know it's good. No wonder I walked bent over, but God's good. Keeps me going. So I give him all the credit, all the praise, all the glory.
What got me to believe is I was a nurse's aide, and I was a temp, and probably was doing it for 6 months, and they had me go watch this lady that they said she's going to die at any minute now at a rest home. And I've never experienced that or anything, never did post-mortem care. I was talking to the nurse, and what do I do? And she's like, "Well, don't bother me, I'm busy tonight," and just all this stuff. And it got to be about 4 a.m., I'm just sitting there wetting her lips, taking care of her, and she dies. And I've never prayed to God, nothing, never crossed my mind, and I go, "God, she deserves better than this. I've never did postmortem care. Please let her continue until somebody more experienced can do this."
Yes,
and right when I said that, she started breathing again.
Wow.
Yeah. And then about 7 o'clock, it happened again. I go, "God, somebody else is coming in at 8. She deserves better. I don't know what to do." And she started breathing again after that. And later on, I found out that at 8:05, 5 minutes after I left, she died and never came back.
Wow. It's just the idea of those prayers that you're putting out there, just keeping her alive. Just the idea that you're ushering God into her life. Yeah, man, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never. I never experienced that before, but that made me legitimately cry after that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. A real man would make a real man cry for sure, because it takes a feeling person to end up. Yeah, I've seen and been part of some stuff that's incredible that happened because of the drugs to me, and the experience I've done, and talking to people, and that under the influence of that, and man, that's a terrible tool that the devil's got for us, and we got to realize it. Be strong enough to say no. Just stay close to the Lord and His Word, and just stay away from that stuff, because He's going to win the battle if we don't do it.
Yeah. All the evils of drinking and alcohol and all that pretty much put my life back 10 years. Like, here I am 32 and I'm finally, finishing school. I bought my first house and I have a kid that's 2.5. But then I can also look at it that, if I didn't go through those trials and tribulations, that, maybe I wouldn't have been ready for all this and I could have lost it.
That's right. Praise God that you came through it. He kept His hand upon you. Yeah. He's going to do a lot of good things with you, brother. To me, that's a sign. Whenever He ends up pulling us through stuff like this, He's created us for a reason. He wants us to be around. He wants us to proclaim His Word. He wants us to help other people. We need to do it. And I'm proud and glad. Yeah.
So where can people find you on the internet?
It's IvanKoloff.com is my address. I know I got couple Facebooks, pages. I don't do computer. My wife takes care of it all. And but if you go to that, the real Ivan Koloff, I think it is. This is the last page she made, a personal page, I guess. I have a couple of Facebooks. After 5,000 people that fill up, she's got to create another one. Now she opened up a personal one, I guess, the real Ivan Koloff or whatever. But I think you'll hold me that way. My book is out to what do we call it? ebook with Scott Teal. He's got it. He wrote books on a lot of the guys from Ole Anderson to a number of the other wrestlers. And it's crowbarpress.com. If you go to that, you'll find a lot of the wrestlers' books on there. And, of course, go to my site. I've hooked up with my daughter's site, too. I got a daughter who's 33 years old. She's a gospel singer, and bringing bringing on 4 daughters here. The fourth one is due any time there now, but one 13, one 10, another one a year old, another one on the way, just any time now, and they're being raised in church. And she's a gospel singer. She's good. I guess she got all the good. She got beautiful hair. If you go to the site, you see blonde hair, curly hair, and I tell everybody, she not only got my hair, but she's got my voice. Somebody got it, because I don't know. But she's real good, I must say so myself. And her husband sings with her. Marley's, Philip and Rachel Marley. And their thing's called highwayrevival.com is their site.
I'm gonna check that out, and of course you have T-shirts on ProWrestlingTees.com.
Yes, I'm really glad that you got those. At first, I was going to put it on like it's just Christian shirts, but just the idea that people, are into the wrestling and they end up getting a shirt and they end up eventually finding out who I am and all this will be good enough for them to find out that Jesus is prevalent in my life, and that way weren't So I really appreciate you putting T-shirts in the long run. Hopefully it'll help us with our ministries and get the message out there.
Well, anytime. I thought it worked on your T-shirt because maybe you could have been like, you should pray that I don't break your back and pin you or something. Something stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. Pray that I don't send Nikita after you with a sickle or something.
Well, I love designing those T-shirts for you, and I'll draw you anything or design you anything you want. It was a pleasure.
Well, I appreciate it. Just to the folks out there that may hear this, it does help our ministry. It helps my ministry to. I get a portion of the sales on the T-shirts, and the same thing. If you go on my site, you end up getting the picture or contacting me if you're in my area, speak at your church, or I'm ordained now, so I officiate weddings in this area. Man, it's I just love being able to go out there and do the Lord's work. And so any way at all you can reach out and help myself. Nikita's got his own ministry. He's got remarried lady in California, koloff.com. And just love your fans out there. I get to learn more and more about the fans as I go along and meet more and more of you at the different events. And man, I can see why I got so in love with wrestling back then when I was a fan, and I can really relate with you guys. And thank you so much for being so kind to support this whole wrestling business that I've loved all my life. And thank you so much to yourself there, for yourself helping out with the T-shirts, brother, and for you and Jeff, Daniel, to help us guys out with T-shirts. I appreciate it.